The early morning light filtered through the heavy grey clouds, casting long shadows across the marble floors of the Grand Plaza Hotel as the city awakened to another day of endless possibilities and quiet desperation. The gentle patter of rain against the tall windows created a melancholic rhythm, much like the beating hearts of those who walk through life unnoticed. It's often said that character is what we do when no one is watching, that the true measure of a person lies not in their grand gestures performed before an audience, but in those small, seemingly insignificant choices made in solitude, when there is nothing to gain but the quiet satisfaction of knowing one has done right. In downtown Chicago, this is how our story begins with Elena Vasquez, a 42-year-old hotel cleaner with calloused hands and a spine that remained unbending despite the weight of life's hardships. A woman who was about to discover that some people enter our lives at the exact moment we need them most. Sometimes, the universe places the most extraordinary tests in the most ordinary moments, and it is in these moments that destinies are forever altered. Elena Vasquez, 42 years old, was a cleaner at the Grand Plaza Hotel. Her face carried the gentle lines of someone who smiled often, despite having little reason to, her dark hair pulled back in a practical bun, with a few silver strands escaping around her temples. Her uniform, though meticulously pressed each morning, showed signs of wear at the cuffs and collar, much like Elena herself, dignified but gradually wearing thin under life's constant friction. There was a time 7 years ago when Elena's life had looked very different. She had been a nurse at Chicago Memorial, with a comfortable apartment she shared with her teenage daughter, Lucia. Her husband, Marco, had been the center of their small family, a skilled carpenter whose hands could transform raw wood into things of beauty. Their evenings had been filled with laughter, weekend plans, and discussions of Lucia's college options. Northwestern was her dream, and they had been saving diligently for years. Then came the accident. A rainy night, a truck driver who'd fallen asleep at the wheel, and Marco was gone. The hospital bills from his 3 days in intensive care had depleted their savings. Then the grief-induced mistakes at work, medication errors that, while caught in time, had cost Elena her nursing license. The apartment they could no longer afford. The college fund redirected to survival. Now her daily life was a carefully choreographed ballet of exhaustion. Waking at 4:30 a.m., preparing lunch for Lucia, who was now working part-time while attending community college, catching 2 buses to reach the hotel by 6 a.m., and then 8 hours of cleaning up after people who rarely looked her in the eyes. The worst part wasn't the work itself. Elena took pride in doing her job well. It was the growing realization that Lucia's dreams were slipping away. Northwestern's acceptance letter had arrived last month, along with a partial scholarship that still left them $22,000 short per year. The deadline for the deposit was just 2 weeks away, and they had less than half the amount needed. Last night, Elena had sat at their small kitchen table, surrounded by bank statements and loan rejection letters, her hand moving unconsciously to touch the gold cross necklace Marco had given her on their 10th anniversary, the one valuable possession she had refused to sell. "Mom, please don't worry," Lucia had said, placing a cup of tea beside her mother. "I'm fine with community college. I can transfer later." But Elena had seen the disappointment behind her daughter's brave smile, the dimming of a light that had once burned so brightly. Nevertheless, Elena maintained her own special kind of dignity. Just yesterday, she had found a guest's prescription glasses and spent her lunch break tracking down the businessman who had checked out that morning, making sure they were couriered to his next hotel in Detroit. When her supervisor questioned why she'd gone to such trouble, Elena had simply shrugged and said, because it was the right thing to do. At the end of her shift, she often took home the small half-empty shampoo bottles and unused soaps that would otherwise be discarded, assembling them into care packages for the homeless shelter where she volunteered on Sundays. Small kindnesses that cost her nothing but meant everything to those who received them. As Eleanor pushed her cleaning cart toward room 712, she had no way of knowing that this ordinary room, on this ordinary Thursday, would be anything but ordinary, that behind this door waited the moment that would change everything. It was on a rainy Thursday in April that everything changed. The 12th floor of the Grand Plaza Hotel overlooked the Chicago skyline, the usually impressive view now obscured by sheets of rain that pounded against the floor-to-ceiling windows. The hallway was silent, except for the distant hum of the elevator and the squeak of Elena's cart as she approached room 712, the Do Not Disturb sign having finally been removed. The air was heavy with the lingering scent of expensive cologne mingled with the fresh roses the hotel placed in its premium suites. The man had been staying in room 712 for 3 days, though Elena had only glimpsed him once. A tall figure in an impeccably tailored grey suit, his back to her as he spoke quietly on his phone by the elevator. The other cleaners had mentioned he was polite but distant, leaving generous tips and minimal mess. He appeared to be in his early 60s with silver-streaked dark hair and the confident posture of someone accustomed to being in charge. Unlike many wealthy guests, he traveled without an entourage, carried his own luggage, and according to Maria at the front desk, had specifically requested no special treatment. Elena knocked 3 times, called out "housekeeping," and waited the customary 15 seconds before using her keycard. The suite was immaculate, bed barely slept in, towels hung neatly, not a personal item in sight except for a sleek leather briefcase beside the desk. The guest had checked out early, leaving behind the characteristic emptiness of a space that had been temporarily inhabited but never truly lived in. She worked methodically, replacing towels, sanitizing surfaces, vacuuming the plush carpet. As she stripped the bed, something caught her eye, a flash of brilliance against the white sheets. There, nestled in the folds of the Egyptian cotton, lay a diamond ring. Elena picked it up carefully, holding it to the light. The diamond was enormous, at least 3 carats, set in what appeared to be platinum with smaller diamonds encircling it. Even with her limited knowledge of jewelry, Elena knew she was holding something worth more than she earned in several years. "Dios mío," she whispered, her heart suddenly racing. For one brief, terrible moment, a series of thoughts flashed through her mind. The ring could pay for Lucia's entire education. No one would know. The guest was gone. It could have been lost elsewhere. It could have been stolen by anyone. The weight of the ring seemed to grow heavier in her palm as these thoughts passed through her mind. Then Elena glanced at her reflection in the mirror across the room. Her mother's eyes stared back at her, and she remembered what her mother had always told her. "Your integrity is the one thing no one can take from you. Only you can give it away." She closed her fingers around the ring and immediately pulled out her phone, calling her supervisor. "Mrs. Reynolds, I found something in room 712, a diamond ring. Yes, the guest has checked out. Yes, I'll bring it down right away." As she rode the service elevator to the management office, Elena held the ring tightly, imagining the panic the owner must be feeling upon discovering its loss. She remembered how devastated she had been when she'd temporarily misplaced her own wedding band 2 years after Marco's death, the physical ache of potentially losing that final connection. Within 30 minutes, the hotel had contacted the departed guest, Mr. Robert Klein, who was now at O'Hare Airport awaiting his flight. He sounded genuinely shocked when informed about the ring and immediately requested to speak with the employee who had found it. "You have no idea what this means," he said when Elena took the phone, his voice rich with emotion. "This ring was my mother's. I was transporting it to give to my daughter this weekend for her engagement. I can't believe I was so careless." "I'm just glad you'll get it back, sir," Elena replied simply. "The hotel tells me you've been working there for 5 years with an exemplary record. Thank you for your honesty, Ms. Vasquez. Not everyone would have turned in something so valuable." "It was never mine to keep, sir," Elena said, the words coming naturally. After the call ended, the ring was secured in the hotel safe to await the courier Mr. Klein was sending. Elena returned to her cleaning rounds, the incident already fading as she focused on the remaining rooms in her section, unaware that the simple act of returning what wasn't hers had set in motion events beyond her imagination. 3 days later, Elena was folding fresh towels in the housekeeping supply room when Mrs. Reynolds appeared at the door. "Elena, there's someone here to see you in the manager's office," she said, her expression unusually animated. "They said it's important." Puzzled and slightly concerned, Elena smoothed her uniform and made her way to the office, wondering if there was a problem with the ring. Perhaps it had been damaged somehow, or maybe the courier had claimed it wasn't delivered. Her mind raced with possibilities, none of them particularly positive. When she entered the office, the hotel manager, Mr. Phillips, stood up quickly, an unfamiliar deference in his posture. Beside him stood the man she recognized from the 12th floor. Mr. Klein, now dressed in a navy suit that even Elena could tell was exceptionally expensive. "Ms. Vasquez," Mr. Klein said warmly, stepping forward to shake her hand. "Thank you for meeting with me. I flew back specifically to thank you in person." Elena's eyes widened in surprise. "You came back to Chicago just to say thank you? That wasn't necessary, sir." "Oh, I think it was," he replied with a smile. "Please, sit down. There's something I'd like to discuss with you." As they sat, Mr. Phillips excused himself, leaving them alone in the office. "The ring you found," Mr. Klein began, "belonged to my mother. It's been in our family for 3 generations, and its monetary value, while substantial at approximately $350,000, is nothing compared to its sentimental worth." Elena gasped softly at the figure. That amount was beyond anything she had imagined. "But what you don't know," he continued, "is that I'm Robert Klein of Klein Jewelry International." The name registered immediately. Klein Jewelry was a global luxury brand, with boutiques in major cities around the world. Their distinctive blue boxes were recognizable, even to someone like Eleanor, who would never shop there. I had no idea," she stammered, suddenly understanding why he had seemed vaguely familiar. "Few people recognize me outside of industry events, which is often a blessing," he said with a slight chuckle. "But here's what's really interesting, Ms. Vasquez. I didn't actually leave that ring behind by accident." Elena stared at him, uncomprehending. "For the past year, I've been conducting what my board of directors thinks is a rather unusual experiment. I've been visiting our stores and various luxury hotels around the country, intentionally leaving valuable pieces behind, testing the honesty of those who find them." He leaned forward, his expression serious now. "What you may not realize is how rare your response was. Out of 18 items I've lost this year, only 3 have been returned." Eleanor sat in stunned silence as he continued. "Your honesty moved me, particularly after I had the hotel tell me a little about your background. Former nurse, widowed, supporting a daughter through college, circumstances under which many people might have justified keeping the ring, or at least expected a substantial reward." "It wasn't mine," Eleanor said simply, finding her voice. "It doesn't matter what my circumstances are. That doesn't change what's right." Robert Klein smiled broadly. "And that, Ms. Vasquez, is exactly why I'm here today. Your integrity is exactly what my company is looking for." He reached into his breast pocket and withdrew a business card, placing it on the desk between them. "I would like to offer you a position with Klein Jewelry International," he said. "We're opening a new flagship store here in Chicago next month, and I need someone I can trust absolutely to manage our customer relations department. The position starts at $85,000 per year, with full benefits, including a comprehensive health plan and tuition assistance program for dependents," Robert explained, sliding a folder across the desk. "The job would involve overseeing customer complaints, managing our special orders for high-value clients, and training staff on service protocols." Elena's hands trembled slightly as she opened the folder, scanning the job description and benefits package. This salary was nearly 3 times what she currently earned. The tuition assistance program would cover 80% of Lucia's education costs. "Mr. Klein, she began, then stopped, a lifetime of caution making her hesitant. "This is incredibly generous, but I don't have experience in jewelry or luxury retail. I was a nurse and now I'm a cleaner. I don't have the qualifications you need. What I need, Ms. Vasquez, is integrity, something you clearly have in abundance. The technical aspects of jewelry can be taught. Character cannot." Still, Elena hesitated. Years of disappointments and setbacks, having taught her that opportunities like this didn't happen to people like her. "Why would you take such a risk on someone like me?" "Because finding honest people is the greatest challenge in businesses dealing with valuable merchandise," he replied. "Your background as a nurse tells me you're capable of handling responsibility and stress. Your current position shows you're not afraid of hard work." As Eleanor considered his words, the door opened and Mrs. Reynolds entered, looking uncomfortable. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but Mr. Delgado is here insisting on speaking with Ms. Vasquez immediately. He seems quite upset." Elena's heart sank. Carlos Delgado was her landlord, and his appearance could only mean one thing. He was here about the rent she was 2 weeks late paying. "Please excuse me," she said to Mr. Klein, embarrassment burning in her cheeks as she stepped outside. In the hallway, Mr. Delgado stood with arms crossed, his face set in lines of impatience. "Elena, this is the third time this year. I've been patient because you've been a good tenant, but business is business. I need the rent by tomorrow or I'll have to start eviction proceedings. Mr. Delgado, please, I get paid Friday. I'll have most of it then and the rest next week," she pleaded, acutely aware that Mr. Klein might overhear. "I'm sorry, Elena. Tomorrow or you'll need to find somewhere else to live." As Mr. Delgado turned to leave, Robert Klein stepped into the hallway. "Excuse me," he said, his authoritative voice causing Mr. Delgado to turn. "I couldn't help overhearing. Are you Ms. Vasquez's landlord?" For the next few minutes, Elena watched in astonishment as Mr. Klein spoke quietly with her landlord, ending with a handshake and Mr. Delgado leaving with a completely different demeanor. "What did you say to him?" Elena asked when they were again alone. "I merely explained that you're about to become a key employee at Klein Jewelry and guaranteed your next 3 months' rent while you get settled in your new position, assuming you accept my offer, of course." In that moment, Elena felt something she hadn't experienced in years, a lightening of the constant weight of financial worry, a glimpse of possibility. But still, there was fear. "What if I'm not good enough? What if I fail?" she whispered, voicing her deepest concern. "Elena," Mr. Klein said gently, using her first name for the first time, "you've been surviving impossible circumstances for years. Managing luxury retail will be challenging, but nothing compared to what you've already overcome." Standing there in the hallway of the hotel where she had cleaned countless rooms, Elena made her decision. She thought of Lucia, of the acceptance letter to Northwestern, of all the compromises and scaled-back dreams. She thought of Marco, who had always believed she could do anything. "Yes," she said, her voice growing stronger with each word. "Yes, I accept your offer, Mr. Klein." 6 months later, Elena stood in the center of the gleaming Klein Jewelry flagship store on Michigan Avenue, watching as customers browsed the sparkling display cases. The elegant black suit she wore was a far cry from her cleaning uniform, just as the light-filled, art-adorned office upstairs differed from the hotel's housekeeping supply closet. Her hands, once raw from cleaning chemicals, now wore a single, simple gold band, Marco's wedding ring, which she'd moved from a chain around her neck back to her finger, a symbol that she was carrying him forward into this new chapter. The transformation had been remarkable, but not without challenges. The first month of training had been overwhelming, learning about gemstones, metals, the intricacies of luxury customer service. There had been nights when Elena had sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by jewelry catalogs and training manuals, fighting the impulse to call Mr. Klein and confess she couldn't do this after all. But each morning, she'd see Lucia preparing for her classes at Northwestern, her daughter's face alight with the kind of hope that had been absent for too long, and Elena would find the strength to continue. Today was special. Lucia would be visiting the store for the first time since its grand opening, bringing some of her new college friends. Elena checked her watch, smoothed her hair, and felt a flutter of pride and anticipation. When the door opened and Lucia entered with 3 other young women, Elena's heart swelled. Her daughter spotted her immediately, waving excitedly before turning to her friends and saying something that made them look at Elena with new interest. "Mom," Lucia called, embracing her, "this place is amazing. I was just telling my friends that my mother is the customer relations manager here." The pride in Lucia's voice was worth every difficult moment of the past 6 months. "Ms. Vasquez," came a familiar voice, and Elena turned to see Robert Klein approaching, having just arrived from New York. "Perfect timing. I want to show you something." He led Elena and Lucia to a new display case being installed near the center of the store. Inside was an exquisite collection of diamond jewelry, rings, necklaces, and bracelets, all with a distinctive design. "This is our new Integrity collection," Robert explained. "Inspired by your story, actually. Each piece features a unique setting where the diamonds appear to be held in place almost invisibly, secured by principles rather than prongs, you might say." Elena stared at the beautiful pieces, speechless. "And this," he said, pointing to a small plaque beside the display, "is why I wanted you here today." The plaque read, "The Vasquez Collection, beauty held in the hands of integrity." "You named it after me," Elena whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "Your story has become something of a legend in our company," Robert said with a warm smile. "And not just here. The board was so impressed by what happened after I hired you that we've implemented a new hiring program focusing on character rather than experience. We call it the Second Chance Initiative. In the quiet moments of our lives when no one is watching and the choices we make are witnessed only by our own conscience, we reveal who we truly are. It is these seemingly small decisions, to do what is right simply because it is right, that often lead to the most profound transformations. For Elena Vasquez and Robert Klein, a diamond ring worth hundreds of thousands became something far more valuable, a catalyst for change, not just in their own lives but in the lives of countless others touched by the ripples of that single act of honesty. What began as a simple choice to return what wasn't hers evolved into a philosophy that transformed a corporation, created opportunities for those who had been overlooked, and restored a mother's ability to give her daughter the future she deserved. Perhaps the true treasures in this life are not those that sparkle behind glass cases, but the moments when our actions align perfectly with our highest values, when what we do reflects who we aspire to be. In your own life, what small act of integrity might be waiting to change everything? Sometimes the most extraordinary journeys begin with the simplest of choices.